we will keep this promise to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan, period. This is the most transparent administration in history. Not even a smidgen of corruption.
Fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you didn't build that.
Oh, welcome to the face. Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Don't expect us to admit a mistake. We're paying off the lecture.
Keep on doing what you do, Rick. You're my favorite host.
It's time to hear the truth about America's biggest challenges. You're listening to America Off the Rails with your host, Rick Robinson.
Coming in as we go as well. Once again, Mr. Stephen Hamilton from Alcon will be joining us here in just a moment as well. Why don't you guys go ahead and take a minute and say good afternoon, let everybody know who you are and that you're here.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Stacey Lennox from Game On, normally on Fridays on WNJC, 5 p.m. drive time right before Yahoo Sports.
This is Lou Esposito of For Whom the Bell Tolls in Office Hours with Dr. Arrington. I am usually Tuesdays at 5 p.m. on Office Hours with Dr. A, who is right here with me, Dr. Arrington.
I love the United States of America, and I want you to love the United States of America, too. This is Dr. A, and welcome to CPAC, everybody.
That was that Dr. A, baby, that Dr. Randy Arrington. He be writing them books. You got to take that shotgun out, shoot the lock off your wallet, grab that credit card. What's the name of that book, Doc?
Politics in America, lecture notes of a lunatic professor.
That's good. I love the Sominex way that you try to sell it. All right, this is your book. Yeah, my book is called The Thing by me. Please buy it. It is eminently interesting. We're going to have a very good afternoon panel here as we wrap up CPAC 2016 in the lobby by the ballroom in the Gaylord Hotel down here in that National Harbor, Maryland, stretching through tomorrow, Sunday, what is it, March 6th? Anybody who's still around tonight, try to find the suite number for the Unsustainable Hot Tub Congressman Party with the Vito and Vito show. That's going to be crazy. Coming up in a few minutes, we have the honor to be bringing you that Mr. Benji Baca. Took a little break coming back into politics, formerly with the Blaze. He's got Dana's wing over him, so he is blessed. He's coming back to tell you why it's important to take breaks and why he got himself back into politics.
And we got Sam Sorbo coming up at 4:30-ish.
Do what now?
Sam Sorbo of the Sam Sorbo Show.
Oh, I was thinking like Kevin Sorbo.
Kevin Sorbo's wife, as a matter of fact.
Ooh, I'm sticking around, baby.
I know, right?
Well, I just did get some early statewide results from Kansas.
And what were those
results?
Go. Early statewide results from Kansas. 53% of the caucus went for Cruz, 21% for Donald Trump, 14% for Marco Rubio, and 10% for Kasich. So hang
on. Back that up a second. What was that number for Trump again?
21 as a second to Cruz, who is currently taking about 53% of the vote.
So wait, Mr. Huge came in second again?
Huge is at 21%. He's so huge. Hey, everybody, you should see. I got my own discount Trump University diploma here at CPAC this week. It's called the certificate.
Is it worth the paper it's printed on?
I don't know. It only cost me $19,990.
What does it say on the back? It says made in China and perfect for bum wiping. That's just good.
Yeah. And the official diploma they're giving out there is now called the Certificate of Deception.
Nice.
You know, this is not a safe space because Dr. A is sitting at the table. So wake up, America. I think I've got something to say to you. And here's what I have to say. Miss Stacey, I think J.D. is incredibly humorous. She doesn't think that. What do you? I think he's very funny.
No. She locks me in the crate like the Gimp in Pulp Fiction until the next radio show.
She tries to manage you, control you.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, as if anybody could fix him.
I will tell you something. It's amazing. I'm looking at this Trump University diploma, and, you know, if any American actually thought they had to pay $36,000 just to get themselves screwed, they were looking at the wrong whore. Nice. You know, I mean, I guess the thing that I have with Trump, you know, I mean, he wasn't. Is it my imagination, or wasn't he supposed to speak here today?
Okay, let me do this because I was here last year. Stephen was here last year. Jeb Bush came to the convention here at National Harbor, Maryland last year, and JD and I made a good bit of fun of him because he bussed in supporters. I mean, the bus was parked right out the back here. But there was quite an eventful protest of him speaking here at CPAC, full of gads and flags and costumes, and he started speaking and everybody else got up and walked out. Now, he didn't speak on the first day, so obviously he had operatives here understanding that this thing was going to happen. Well, the reason Donald Trump did not come here had to do with, A, he was going to have to answer questions, and B, his operatives here on the ground became aware that he was going to be protested when he showed up. You don't not show up when you're going to be protested. That is absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, if anything, you show up just to prove to people that you can handle the fact. I mean, what's he thinking? I'm going to be the commander-in-chief and nobody's ever going to disagree with him?
This is the guy, and I'm going to say it again, who has decided we need to modify the First Amendment so people can stop writing quote-unquote hit pieces. Be they true, be they accurate, be they opinion. So he doesn't like anyone anywhere saying anything contrary to his own narrative or his own opinion for any reason. Certainly nothing negative about him.
Hey, guys, we got a surprise stop by. I believe Kelly Ward is about to sit down at the table with us and have a little bit of a conversation. Kelly Ward is challenging John McCain for his Senate seat in Arizona, and we love her. And we are so happy to have her and her husband, Michael, here. Hi, Kelly.
Hey, Lou. It's great to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
And it was great to have interviewed you before. And it's great to actually meet you.
I know,
in
it's
person.
nice to see you face to face.
I know. It's great. It really is.
It's much easier than on the phone.
Yes, it is easier on the phone. And it's just great to see you because I think so much of you. And I'm really supporting your campaign, as you know. And I don't really do that very much on the radio, but you're somebody that I really love and I really believe in. And why don't you tell people why I believe in you so much?
Wow, well, I appreciate that so much. I'm taking on this challenge of trying to unseat an over 3-decade entrenched incumbent previous presidential nominee for the GOP because it's time for a change. 30 years in Washington, D.C. changes a person, and unfortunately it has changed John McCain. If it weren't the case, I wouldn't be taking this on. But, he gets up every 6 years, and he is a campaign conservative. And then he goes back to Washington, D.C., and he decimates conservative ideas and ideals and attacks true conservatives here, there, and everywhere, doesn't utilize his prowess to attack the Democrats and the progressives. Instead, he likes to see himself as a maverick who crosses the aisle and delivers some of our votes to the other guys to pass those progressive big government policies. How many times have you seen him cross the aisle and drag some of their people back to our side?
Way too many.
Yeah. Well, no, he never brings them back our way, but he takes them over there every time. Every time. And so, I think it's time for a change, and people in Arizona are looking for a competent, qualified, capable person who's ready to take the reins and hit the ground running in Washington, D.C. and do the job, to look for common sense ideas that will move this country in the right direction. Of course, I think it needs to take a sharp right turn and then move forward, but we've got to get the right people in place if we want that right turn.
Absolutely, and we want to change the players, and I think that you're one of the new players that we want to see in D.C. for sure. And one thing that people may not know about you is that you are an emergency room doctor.
Yes.
Not a nurse. A doctor. A female doctor. Woo! And not that there aren't lots of you guys
more now.
out there. There's lots of you out there now.
Thanks to people who paved the way.
But one of your issues has been Obamacare. So tell us what your plan for that is, or what do you want to see happen there?
Yes, well, of course, I believe Obamacare must be fully repealed, period. And that includes repealing all of the taxes and all of the regulations that go along with Obamacare, because that alone will save our country billions, if not trillions of dollars. Now, I have proposed a health policy plan, a health plan called the Patient Power Plan. And in that Patient Power Plan, we will put the power of healthcare back where it belongs. We'll take it away from politicians, and we'll take it away from bureaucrats and insurance company executives, and we will put it smack dab in the hands of patients, because we all, as patients, deserve the healthcare that we want and the healthcare that we need, rather than having to settle for what the government is willing to give us. So that has to be done through health savings accounts and catastrophic care coverage for true emergencies, something that you truly use insurance for. Because you know what? When you buy car insurance, you hope not to use it, right? And if you buy life insurance, you hope to heck not to use it, at least not for a really, really long time. But when people get health insurance, suddenly they if they get a mosquito bite or they skin their knee, they're in the emergency department. And so we've got to get that under control so that we have high quality, cost effective, and great access to care. And we can do that through the free market and through competition.
And nobody knows really more about that than an emergency room doctor. So I think that you're uniquely qualified.
Yes, well, I will tell you that I get to see, because, you know, being a policymaker, when I was in the state Senate in Arizona, I get to see the effects of the policies that are passed at the national level, at the federal level, and at the state level in action in the emergency room. And I will tell you that I used to say I see the good, the bad, and the ugly of Obamacare and Medicaid expansion. Well, now I've crossed out the good. I see the bad and I see the ugly. An example is the last time that I worked, I saw a girl that was 27 or 28 years old, no chronic medical illnesses, anything like that, but she has been to the ER 30 times. Now, a lot of people say, oh, 30 times. I'm like, and not just 30 times in her life, 30 times since June. And so that goes back to what the president said, you know, that we've got to have people have skin in the game. Well, there are a lot of people with no skin in the healthcare game who are utilizing the most expensive kind of healthcare in the wrong way to get truly excellent health.
And even those of us with insurance who've been to the emergency room know that is the most expensive way to get health care is to go to the ER.
Yes, it is.
And most of us, if we have insurance, we'll avoid it like the plague because we know that.
Yes. Well, and also, you have to pay the bill. But if you are on the taxpayer type of healthcare welfare, Medicaid, then there is no bill for you to pay.
And I'll take this opportunity to just remind people that this is a local election with national consequences for this reason, because it is you're challenging a 3-decade senator with a ton of power and a ton of sway, and to get a new player in that position, I think would really start to sway the power in Washington. Another thing that we've seen with both the Senate and the House is that they've ceded so much of their power to the executive branch.
Yeah. Well, the executive branch via not just letting the executive run away and do whatever he wants, but also via regulations through the unelected bureaucracies that permeate Washington, D.C. and this entire country. And I'm glad to see Mike Lee starting his Article 1 project, where he is trying to rein that in, because what they do in Congress right now is they pass these sweeping regulations that say, we want clean water, we want clean air. Of course we want that. But then they tell the bureaucrats in different agencies to now go and figure out how to do it, make the rules and the regulations, and then what do bureaucrats do? Bureaucrats make bureaucracy. And so that's why we've got to rein it in and get the power back where it belongs, into the hands of the people via the elected officials.
Absolutely.
Can we let Dr. Ray get in a word edgewise here?
No.
Oh,
yeah,
well,
sure.
let me provide some. Let me provide some background here. Dr. Ray is one that successfully wrangled and lassoed Dr. Ward and Michael, her husband, to appear on the show. She's going to appear on the shows later on in the future for a whole hour. Okay, so I'm the one that did the legwork here. I'm getting ready to do that. I walked up to her in the bold fashion that a naval aviator uses, told her who I was, Dr. Ray Dearington, office hours of Dr. Ray, would you do an interview? And she kept slowly walking like I was nobody until I told her two things. One, I have flown John McCain before, and two, my producer's name is Lou Bell. I love Lou, just like everybody else. They love you, and I get little respect.
I do love Lou.
That's not true.
You are the Rodney Dangerfield of our station, sir.
I told Dr. Ward and her husband, Michael Ward, Dr. Ward, squared, that John McCain is my naval aviator brother, and I love him to death with agape type love. But I have told him, man to man, face to face, looked him in the eye, and said, sir, it is time for you to retire. You have to go and let somebody else come in there with the young blood and conservative values and principles come in there and take over for Arizona and the national implications, actually global implications. And I've told him that. What do you think?
I mean, I support term limits. I didn't really have an opinion in the past, before I got into elected office, because I thought the best term limit was at the ballot box, that we'd be able to vote people out. But the people that are in Washington, D.C. right now have stacked the deck against insurgent candidates like me, against outsiders, and made it so that it is very, very difficult for somebody who's not an incumbent to get into Washington, D.C. So that's why we have to have term limits, because, I think 12 years in Washington, D.C. is more than enough time for anyone, and I think that it's time for the next generation to be trained and ready to go, and they will have the energy and the stamina to take the country in the right direction.
I'm going to write an article on term limits, but the problem with term limits at the ballot box is this. 87% of elected members of the House get reelected. 91% of the senators get reelected. You talk to people and they say, I hate Congress, but I love my guy.
I think that's changing, especially in Arizona. It's hard to find a lot of love for Senator McCain, which I feel bad, because he has served his country for a long time. He served his country in the military, and I have all the respect in the world for that. But he hasn't figured out that it's time for him to retire. Now, hopefully we are sending that message to him, and hopefully he will start to feel confident that I can take the reins, and I will not do anything that would not make him and Arizona proud. And so, you never know what could happen between now and May 30th. May 30th is the filing deadline. I'd welcome Senator McCain over to my team. If he wants to come on board, and say, I'm not running, I'd welcome him.
Senator McCain, please join the Ward team.
Join Team Ward.
Come out and retire and endorse Kelly Ward.
Exactly, because I think it would send a strong message that he wants the country to move down the right path.
Enjoy his grandkids.
Yes.
And retire and enjoy his
Exactly.
grandkids and let you do the work. Now, one other issue that I want to ask you about before we pass to our next guest, because we have a couple other people that we're going to interview, and I know you have lots of stuff you want to do. You have also come out for Second Amendment.
Of course.
Right. Say a little bit about that, because that's probably something people don't expect from you, but I've heard a lot from you
I've been a
about
huge supporter of our Second Amendment. In the Arizona State Senate, I sponsored the Second Amendment Protection Act every single year that I was there. Of course, it was thwarted by big government Republicans that joined with the Democrats, so that it never was able to get signed into law. They're still trying, though. I passed that torch on to some other legislators. They're trying to get those kind of common sense bills into effect. But I will always stand strong for our Second Amendment and stand against gun control, because we all know that gun control only adversely affects law-abiding gun owners. The criminals are not going to obey any new laws. They don't obey the laws now. Why would they suddenly start to obey new gun control laws? They won't. And so we've got to stand strong in supporting our entire Constitution and Bill of Rights, and especially our Second Amendment.
And Kelly would do the exact same thing in the U.S. Senate.
Exactly right.
Kelly, thank you so much for stopping by on your way to, and say hello, Michael.
Howdy.
And that's Kelly's husband, Michael Ward, who is also a doctor and probably your strongest campaign worker.
Oh yes, he is strong. He does. My mom does. My kids do. My in-laws. Everybody. It really gives me the support that I need to be able to do it.
The state of Arizona loves you.
Exactly. Yeah, they do. They do. It's great. And hey, I hope your listeners will join me at kellyward.com or on Facebook at Kelly Ward for Arizona or on Twitter at Kelly Ward AZ. The important thing is they have to remember it's Kelly with an I, because I care about the people. So join me.
There you go. I like that. And this is a local campaign, a state campaign with national consequences. So everybody remember that. And even if you're not in Arizona and you can't vote for Kelly, you can support her and you can get out there.
Yeah. My husband says push the donate button. You can push the donate button, but you can also share social media posts. That helps increase my name ID, because I'm going up against a guy with nearly 100% name identification. So I've got to increase mine, and you all can help me do it.
Exactly. So get out there and support Kelly, even if you're not in Arizona. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Lou. Thanks, Dr. A.
Appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to America Off the Rails, the Roundhouse Edition, right here live on WNJC 1360 AM out of Philadelphia. We are live at CPAC. That was Dr. Kelly Ward, candidate for Senate for Arizona. Hopefully we will get her on again soon. If you're just now tuning in and you've missed it, this segment will be live on K98 Talk tomorrow evening in our normally scheduled time for America Off the Rails at 11 Eastern, 10 Central. So while we're making way for our next guest to get situated, I do want to give a quick shout out to one of our sponsors. That would be RebelRoadTactical.com. I'm actually sporting their gear right now at CPAC. Make sure you're checking him out on their website, especially if you are into concealed carry or want a decent holster, because he's a guy that will make you whatever it is that you want. As of right now, we have JD sitting down with us, as well as one Mr. Benjamin Backer, or Benji Backer, I do believe. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good. How are you? Good.
And for those of you who are familiar with conservative activist politics, that's why you listen to that WNJC 1360 AM, covering that Philadelphia, Southern Jersey, and Northern Delaware. You should be very familiar with Benji Backer. If you are not, I suggest right now you walk downstairs, open the door of your house, walk out into traffic, close your eyes, and stay there. Benji, welcome to the program, baby.
Thank you. Great to be here. Great to be here.
And I'd like to last year we ran into you at CPAC, and for those of you who don't know, basically your profile here at CPAC began about 4 years ago when you were about 14 years old, correct?
Oh, I thought he was 9.
And
Something like that.
He's just 13 now, right?
Right.
Okay.
He's 18, young looking, but actually when you speak to him, he has wisdom beyond his years. And I'd like you to catch our audience up with what you were doing right up until CPAC 2015, what precipitated the break you took, and why it was so important for you to be back here this week and come back into politics. And don't forget to tell people where they can find you, baby, and how they buy them things.
Sure. So I actually became active when I was 10 years old, and my first CPAC was in 2013. I came here just for fun with some of my friends, and I had the pleasure of being introduced to people such as Dana Lash, Ben Howe, Eric Erickson. Had some great contacts right away. And within a...
Because you were cute.
Hey, it's got to help, right? Within a few weeks, they were helping me with the connections, and I started writing for some great sites like FreedomWorks, and I eventually posted a blog about how my teachers had harassed me in the classroom because of my views, and that's what burst me onto the national scene. I had interviews on Fox News with Dana Lash on the radio, Laura Ingraham on the radio. Had some really cool opportunities there, and that kind of opened up the door for me to a lot of different things. I started speaking across the country at different conventions. I spoke at CPAC the following year. And I started writing for the IJ Review and The Blaze, and I continued to be active locally doing campaign work, because for me, it's not just about spreading the message nationally. You need to be active locally and helping out local candidates as well, because that's just as important or more important than the activism on the national level. And then last year, I did not have the opportunity to speak, and then after CPAC, I decided to take a break from politics, like you mentioned. And I did that because of a lot of reasons. I had seen a lot of things through my political time that had frustrated me, and it kept on frustrating me more and more to see organizations use people, politicians use people, and that was frustrating to see, especially as I was just starting to get on the national scene. Additionally, I'm the type of person that likes to work with other people no matter what their opinion, and so I was really frustrated by the divide, not only between the two parties and the two movements, but between the own movement, like the conservative movement splitting up, the liberal movement splitting up. You know, it's split into factions, and now it's even worse than it was then.
And then you add ego to that as well.
Right, and you add ego. And so that was the other problem for me. I have great parents. I have a great support system around me that tells me what's wrong and what's right. And I could tell that I was becoming selfish. I could tell that I was not doing things for the right reasons anymore, and I didn't like that. I wanted to make a difference, but I didn't want to do it for the wrong reasons. So I wanted to take a step back, figure out what my priorities were, and I didn't even know if I was going to be able to come back to politics at some point, because I'm going to college next year, and I wasn't really sure.
So I interviewed you first time. I think it was almost 3 years ago.
Yes, it was
down in Florida at the
county jail.
The county jail. I was in jail, and Benji showed up. It was,
he was volunteering.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he brought me a box lunch.
There were box lunches there.
Yeah, there were box lunches there. Absolutely.
That's not even wrong.
So the question I have is, you've seen some other young people that have gone through this, and it seems to change them, seems to stress them out. Maybe they're not quite founded where they think they were, right? And maybe they changed a little bit. What has been that impact on you? What's kept you steady? You definitely seem more mature now. I'll give you that. And
he told us it's the heroin.
Yeah, it is the heroin. It's got to be. But no, how
I told you not to say that on the air.
No, but you've seen that. You've seen that. There's the effect that it's had. So how have you been able to kind of stay true to your conservative roots and ideologies through that?
So looking back on it, I actually advise people, you look at the case of C.J. Pearson, Jonathan Crone, and others that maybe weren't as well known. They changed their viewpoints over the course of a few years, because if you get active when you're 12 years old, I started when I was 10, you don't really know what you're doing. You want to make a difference, but you don't even really understand yourself.
Right.
I'm 18, and I know I don't fully understand myself still. Mm-hmm. And so when you're active that early, it can be a very dangerous thing. And so I think that the conservative movement needs to realize that putting kids on a pedestal for their movement is a dangerous thing, and it's not something that is very smart for the movement to do. For me, my morals and my beliefs were there, and they are steady, but for a lot of other people, that's not the truth. And a lot of other influences, not just their family, but it can be their friends, their teachers, whatever, can influence their beliefs. And so this is the time where beliefs change constantly. I mean, when you're a teenager, you have so many things that you're going through that you don't know what you believe until basically you get through it. And so if you're starting to get active before you hit the teenage years, I mean, that can be a horrible thing. So for me, I was lucky enough to have a good support system around me and good morals that were developed before I even hit the teenage years. I've had some views that have, changed over the years, but it's not been dramatic. Mm-hmm. I've gotten more far right on some issues and more modern on certain issues, but I'm still a strong conservative.
He used to be nicer to me on Twitter. He used to be nicer to me on Twitter.
All right. You know what? We'll have to air this out right now. We're going to have to air this out and squash this here at CPAC, all right? Let's get a 40 to put down for the homies' tweets that didn't make it, all right? There is a big showdown right now here between Hammy and Ben. There's a little saltiness, I understand. Was there not?
I took it easy. I took it easy on the youngster until he obviously proved himself to be smarter than me, and then I found myself at a distinct disadvantage to an 18-year-old. This is the interesting thing is that this is the kind of the common debate that we have, which is, and we were just talking about this a few minutes ago, within the conservative movement, where we're almost getting super nitpicky between groups of people that, in any other circumstances, we'd be sitting there going, that's the same bag of donuts.
This is everybody right now going, everybody wants to date a supermodel. Oh, no, that one, she was just Miss USA. She wasn't Miss Universe. Everybody, honestly, within the sound of my voice, if you're a Rubio or a Cruz supporter and you want to go to war with each other over the differences in your candidate, and at the same time you're going to go out there and rail against the hand grenade that is in Donald Trump that's been rolled into the Republican primary, I want you to honestly, after the show, think long and hard about that. Because I see Cruz and Rubio supporters, not all of them, but I see them sometime, whether it's on social media, even here at CPAC in certain ways. They line up for those. I know Benji hasn't seen West Side Story because he is 14 months old. But there was a movie.
I have seen that.
All right, so there's a Sharks and a Jets lineup almost.
He doesn't know the tunes.
Between the Cruz and Rubio supporters. And I am speaking to you. I've made my point over and over again with Stacey on our show. I do not see that divide. You can have your guy, and you can say, I like this guy a little more than the other, but, for those of you right now who are divvying up jerseys and saying, this one's the best and this one is nothing, I don't see a lot different than what you see on the progressive side.
And this goes back to what I was talking about very early in the campaign, purity tests. What will kill the conservative movement over time is purity tests. So everybody, Gang of 8 2013, Gang of 8 2013. So we're going to forgive Donald Trump for the flip-flops he's done for the last 10 years, let alone the last 10 days.
70 years.
Okay.
10 hours.
10 hours? He was coming to CPAC, wasn't coming to CPAC.
Right,
yeah, there you go. All
there have been so many beautiful Mexicans through my wife's door, I vowed to build a wall.
But I mean... we give no room to a Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio or Rand Paul or somebody who's been in Congress who actually said, well, wait a minute, maybe what I did then wasn't what I should have done, and here's how I'd make it different now. Positions moderate, even when you're 43.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And we never, like so many people at the beginning of this election, were giving no room to Marco Rubio to modify his position on immigration, and they still don't.
I mean, we're in our 40s, and I found it very interesting before when you said, at my age, I'm at a time in my life where, certain things might change. Outside of your core beliefs, outside of your heart and soul felt core beliefs, for your entire life, Benji. We got more than twice the age on you, and we're going to change and evolve over time. You're going to evolve in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s over things, but it's those core principles and beliefs, and I think that to my mind, when I see people flailing around out there looking for something to latch onto politically, to my mind, they are most likely people that do not have, like you were saying, that you are so blessed and privileged to have parents who raised you to have these beliefs, you know, and allowed you to do the thinking on your own to embrace them. And, you know, let me ask you a question. As a young guy coming up in the conservative movement.
It's me or Benji.
Of course you, Hammy. So let's talk about the Goldwater election of...
Benji, you talked a little bit. You talked a little bit about why you took a break. Why did you decide to come back this week?
Well, okay, so it's been about a year, and I'm almost...
He met you.
That's right. I met you again.
No. You met him last year and you left.
No, that's right. I ruined Benji.
I saw him again, and now I'm back. It's crazy how this works.
Crazy.
No, but I'm coming back for a lot of the reasons that I left. The divide. You know, I want to be a positive voice. I want to be a unifying voice for young conservatives because there aren't enough of them. There aren't enough people pushing a unified message. Like you were saying, the Rubio supporters go after Cruz like he's the devil, and vice versa. Right. They should be doing that with Trump, Hillary Clinton, and Bernie Sanders.
Thank you.
I would walk over broken glass to vote for either Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz in the general election.
Exactly.
And then JD would lick them bloody feet, baby.
That was a visual we did not need.
That was just gross.
I don't think I've ever heard something like that before.
So, you know, but back to Donald Trump for just a second, because everybody keeps saying he's not a career politician. Isn't this the guy that's been running or trying to run for president since
1988? Yeah,
that is absolutely
a career crony.
Who was the one that made that point that we so agreed? Was it
Andrew?
So Andrew Langer made the point when we had him on the air yesterday. Andrew Langer from the Langer Hour over on the Realm Radio Network. He's also with the Institute for Liberty, and he had an excellent point. And there is enough out there that you can see this. Rush Limbaugh said something about this about a week ago, but it was in a more recent context. Donald Trump has been planning this run probably since the mid or late 1980s. And to my mind, if you look at the breadcrumbs he's left out there for you to, and the tea leaves for you to read, he's basically just been trying to identify the right moment and cycle to get in, because at the end of the day, you know, once everybody realized it wasn't going to be a big promo for The Apprentice and he was actually going to run, Donald Trump's not going to run for office unless he thinks he's got a shot at winning it. And I think that his candidacy to the conservative movement should be a canary in the coal mine. Because when the rest of us conservatives sat here and looked at the field and said it's either going to be Hillary or Bernie, and we had what we were calling the deepest, most substantive bench in maybe 30 years.
He had some great candidates.
And it was Donald Trump who was right about this, and we were wrong. He looked at a field that if he's been looking at for close to 30 years to enter, he stayed out of the other cycles, and in this one he said, I can do this. I can beat these idiots. And, you know, we'd be sitting here in the beginning of this going, are you insane? Do you see the depth in what we have? And we sit here on March 5th with him not even having to come to CPAC. And I think it's a canary in the coal mine to the conservative movement. As a young conservative, how do you see this? Do you see a movement in flux? Do you see a movement in need of blowing up and rebuilding? Or
I think if we nominate Donald Trump, I think that we need to blow up and rebuild, because that's not a conservative.
Can I get an amen? I'm just saying.
Amen, Brother Rick.
He is not a conservative, and we were just talking. You said he's been planning this since the 80s, right? What was he in the 80s? A liberal. He's been planning.
What is he now?
He was a liberal. A liberal now.
Thank you.
He runs as a conservative.
No. He runs as a Republican.
In quotations.
But he's a populist.
Oh, I completely agree. But what's crazy is that he's been planning this for so long, and he would have ran when he was a liberal, and he's still a liberal, but now he's running now as a quote-unquote Republican, and no one can notice that. They're so ignorant.
It's, I think it's because and this goes back to blowing up the movement, because we were just having a conversation before about how important the Constitution is and what the founding documents mean. And I think if you blow up the movement, that separates people who are sitting there and going, you want to know what? I'm sick of this. I just want to win.
Yep.
Hey, man, everybody wants to win. That's why lotto is such a big thing all over the country. Everybody wants to win, baby. You got to be in
the bigger the lotto.
That's right. But I think that people are tired and people are beaten down and people are so disaffected as to what's being sold to them. You know, you have to differentiate now you have two out-year election cycles in 2010 and 2014, which if you put a label on it was very good for the quote-unquote Tea Party.
Yep.
But it's become hard for people now within the last 6 to 10 years to say, okay, well, which is actually a real good organization and which one is taking donations and actually paying their directors $500,000 a year instead of actually being activists to bring up the right candidates. And I think you see the same thing with candidates. I'll say it right now. You had Adam Kinzinger in Illinois who ran on the Tea Party platform, not that the conservative, and he was the one who got nailed, never going to vote. He spent a ton of money doing his office over like downtown Abbey, and he was one of the first Congress people to endorse Donald Trump for president. So you have these people that said, but I listened to what they said, and we don't lose, and now I just want to win. If you're so tired that you just want to win, do you have the fight to go forward? And I think that goes to your point about blowing up the movement.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that over the course of the next few months, we're going to see what's going to happen with the movement. But I don't want to be part of a movement where Donald Trump is the front runner. And
me neither.
Yeah, he'll never be the front runner of the conservative movement. I mean, no. The conservative movement's where it is right now because they refuse to Einstein and get behind their leader. So I just don't see it.
That's why he didn't come here.
The other problem is that this election is turning a lot of young people away from the conservative and Republican movement because
thank you.
As a young person who goes to a conservative high school, I see my friends who are conservative and my friends who are liberal who are like, wow, that's what the Republican Party is? And they're ignorant. They don't know very much about politics, but that's what they're seeing. They're seeing Donald Trump constantly win. Doesn't matter what he says, doesn't matter what he does, doesn't matter what he misses, doesn't matter what he does, and we're still supporting him. And so they're like, what is the Republican Party? Is that seriously what they are?
And as a mom, I'll just say I have children I've raised with conservative values. They did well in school. They've gotten Max scholarships. They all have jobs. They work hard. They've earned their own stuff.
You have two you could set up with, or one. You have one you could set up with Benjamin.
Yeah, there you go.
That's right.
But literally, had you text them both on primary day in Georgia and say, I've never asked you how you're going to vote because I believe that's personal, right? I mean, they're good kids with good values. If you're going to vote Democrat, Hillary's got a lock on Georgia. If you could please go vote in the Republican primary for someone other than Donald Trump, and here's why. And both of my daughters, because they love their mother, went and voted in the primary and voted on the Republican side for someone other than Donald Trump. And my embarrassment, even with my youngest, who's 15, is that I've raised you this way. I believe a good way to be raised. You work hard, you do well, you know. And the first election you can vote in, this is what the party I've chosen is going to offer you. I'm mortified.
It's the first one for me, too.
Yeah.
And if you're just joining us right now on WNJC 1360, we are proud and privileged to bring to you Benji Backer live here from CPAC 2016 at the Gaylord Hotel down there in National Harbor, Maryland, baby. Counting down the last few hours, we're going to be live on the radio before we go with our political geeks, freaks, and back alley sneaks to have all sorts of after-hours conservative fun. To the point that you guys were just making, I don't know if it's a tinfoil hat thought or a more Machiavellian thought. I think from a consultancy point of view, to Benji's point, about even being in a conservative high school and just having this clown show of a nonsensical traveling carnival, right? That's been going on with him up there talking about his schmeckle and his joint in a presidential debate. You know, if I'm grandma and I get the nomination, and my playbook is all full of identity politics and class warfare anyway, and I was going to use the war on women and misogynists, even if it was Uncle Ben Carson, you know, that no matter who it was, they're going to use the same playbook. And I haven't heard anybody else say this. I actually believe that this might be the first major presidential cycle in maybe 70 or 80 years. I could see if Trump got the nomination, Hillary Clinton saying, because she's not a good debater and she's not a good retail candidate, I could honestly see her saying, I will not debate that man. He doesn't debate. He insults. He's not going to talk about policy. It's a waste of my time. He talks about his anatomy when he's on the stage with other men. What do you think kind of crass things I should expose myself onto a stage? You want to know what? I'm going to run for president of the United States, and those nights when they're having debates, I'm going to let P.T. Barnum go have his clown show, and I'm going to give a speech somewhere and be substantive. And I can't stand that fat piano leg lying thief with an AIDS-ridden about to drop dead husband. I can't. But you want to know know something? And yes, it was.
She's right.
I don't care. Everybody says he looks like that because of heart surgery. Ain't no way you messed around with your wife that much, and you ain't got yourself some AIDS right now. But the whole point is, I couldn't argue with her if she said that. I honestly, at this point, could not argue with her if she said that.
And the scary thing is, even if she ditched every single debate, she'd probably still win.
Yep.
That's for damn sure.
Yep.
You know?
Because she would be a much more respectable candidate than one who just throws names around, and that's an easy excuse and a reasonable excuse for somebody not to debate him. I mean, she would be right. That is not a debate.
Right.
And she would just say, I'm going to take the high road. I'm not going to debate Donald Trump. He's not true. He's not a true American. He's not a true. And she would easily walk away with the victory. But I think that she would easily walk away with the victory anyways, because there's so many Republicans and conservatives who will not vote for him, and I'm one of them.
Yep. Never Trump. Now, going back to...
you forgot the hashtag. Hashtag
we're on radio. We're on radio.
I know.
Hello. Hello, guy. Were you looking for the camera? That's why we're wearing Rebel Road tactical T-shirts and not suits right now. It's radio.
Speaking of cameras, turn around. Other way. Other way.
JD. WNJC, baby. 1360 AM. Serving that Philadelphia, Southern Jersey, Northern Delaware. Not yet. We're getting there. Well, thank you very much. We dropped here with Benji Backer, Ricky Tiki Tavi, Rick Robinson, host of America Off the Rails, 5 nights a week, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on that K98 Talk, all part of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network here at WNJC. I got the beautiful Stacy, my radio co-host from Game On, and that Lou Bell, baby, sitting over here with her national security experience, just waiting to go. Dr. A standing back there in the wings, the king of the airways in WNJC, Rick Trader, overseeing it all. Back to the interview with Mr. Backer. Benji, one of the things I'd like you to make the point of what the break did for you and why it was important, because so many people are so dispirited. One of the first things I said when we ran into each other at that event the other night is, I'm glad you took a break, man. And I think if this happens to you again, you should take another break. Because if you didn't, you wouldn't be here right now.
No, I wouldn't.
And you wouldn't be this passionate.
Right.
So if you could just give the audience a little, nothing too deep, but a little personal flavor of, hey, man, I needed it, I took it, and it was a good idea.
Yep, and that's exactly how I feel. I think everybody in this movement needs to push it really hard, their activism really hard, but with that comes the consequences of feeling burnt out. It's not always easy, and so if you take a step back, that allows you to be so much more motivated when you come back that you're going to make a hell of a lot more difference doing that than if you just stuck with it, push through it. I mean, you're not doing real work then, and you're not enjoying it. And this should be, politics is something that you can enjoy. There's a lot of nasty things in it. But our movement needs to be inspired and motivated, and it can't be that way if people are just faking their way through it. So for me...
So well said.
For me, it was a great way for me to take a step back, look at things from a broad perspective, kind of reevaluate what I was going to do when I get back, and now I have a plan. I have a plan of action, and now I'm ready to get back to work. And so, but if I wasn't doing that, I wouldn't be ready to get back to work, and I wouldn't be pushing hard to, help push the conservative message.
Benji Backer just told you, ladies, for every ladies in the audience, whether you're 18 or 80, blind, crippled, or crazy, Benji's the one who said it. Faking it ain't never going to get you nowhere.
No.
I'll have what she's having. What shall we bet, Benji?
This movement is successful because of the grassroots people in the movement who are working hard to elect grassroots candidates. And without people who are inspired and motivated to do that, we can't be the movement with grassroots activists and grassroots messaging.
The other thing that I think is very important, and we're doing a little bit of this at the table. My take on this, whether it's Michael Loftus, who's doing the Flip Side show, whether it's Tim Allen, who just got canceled, whether it's some of the newer shows that are coming up in conservative radio, I honestly believe that conservatives need to get over themselves, because funny is funny, and you have to embrace humor and pop culture while you take this political ride, because if you don't, you're going to be like one of the monks with a vow of silence up in a monastery transcribing things, and your little painted quill, and sitting there going crazy with your little bald head and your weird brown hot robe, and you're never going to have any fun, And you take what Benji just said and what he went through in the last year, and the whole time that you've been sitting here, we ran into you, man. It's nothing but smiles between everybody. You know,
Exactly.
We'll talk a little serious politics, but a lot of it is laughing because laughter is general. If we got airdropped into Swaziland right now, we found the Great Lost Tribe, and they have nothing written in it, click, click, and somebody's got the Coke bottle. You know, the universal language to communicate with them besides math is laughter. It is. It's laughter and humor because your average human being, unless you're Donald Trump because of the Mexicans that have been through my wife's door, they want to laugh. They want to have a good time. They want to be inspired. And if you can do that and you can combine substance and you can combine a little knowledge, people will stick around for that. I mean, that's just my opinion.
And no one wants a serious profession where they have to be serious all the time. No one wants to work with something that they're serious all the time.
Right.
And so if you're not having fun with politics, then you're not going to want to do it.
You should see how I've tortured this poor woman with the fun that I have in politics.
Speaking of fun, I thought we weren't going to mention anything that happens in the room. The robe, the quill, I mean, come on, the painting on the wall.
Oh, well, okay,
what happened in the room stayed in the room.
Maybe because you're from Oklahoma, all right? People in the rest of the world, that's called role-playing, all right? It's very expensive by the hour, so I wish you would stop judging me for
He's
that.
18. Stop.
Oh, then he should know now. That's
No, stop. I'm a mom.
We don't have the bell to ring. What are you writing? What was the last thing you wrote? Where can they find it? What are you passionate about writing right now, specifically within the movement?
Sure. So I just got back into this week, so I haven't even written anything yet. I did write a blog explaining
You have it posted.
Right. Why I'm back into the political movement. I have a website. It's not a great website, but it has some simple information on it. It's BenjiBacker.com.
Spell that.
BenjiBacker.com. And my Twitter is also at Benji Backer. I plan on writing for IG Review and The Blaze, but I'm looking to get involved with CNN, op-ed.
Oh, you were talk a little bit about that.
Because I think CNN has a good group of actually conservatives. They've got Dana Lash, they've got S.E. Cupp. They've got some great voices from the conservative movement, but they don't have anybody that's young, and they don't have anybody from the millennial.
Don't tell Dana and S.E. that.
Oh, they're young, but they're not. I guess S.E. is.
They're not the youth.
Oh my God,
they're not college, high school, or around that age.
Exactly.
You know who is going to be petrified of him over at CNN? Well, you know the Travelocity gnome?
I do.
Okay. Wolf Blitzer looks exactly like the Travelocity gnome.
I haven't thought about that, but he does.
But he does. Okay, and he's always yelling. But you know who Benji would scare the hell out of at CNN? Anderson Cooper. Because Anderson Cooper has been their poster boy and their movie star up there that they can do. But he's a little silver up in the nest. Now we got the new face coming up here. Benji, I like this. I can see... the hell with AC 360. I want to see BB 180. That's going to be the new CNN show.
There's nothing more creepy than when I go to a political conference and people call me BB. Because hey BB, and there's these old men who think that
you
BB...
just got called creepy.
I didn't call him BB when we met him. That was here for this...
It was an example. It was an example.
Wait, I mean, come on.
You should turn around and talk in Yiddish and tell him you're Netanyahu.
He just said you called it BB 180. He said BB creepy.
BB, how you doing? People I am protecting, Palestine, no but. Oh my God, that's his nickname. We're going to work out a whole BB Netanyahu.
He just said it's creepy. He doesn't like it.
I guess I'm going to need to get used to it.
Okay, so when did we ever deny that JD was creepy? Just for the record?
Sure, we never denied
that. JD denies it all the time.
It's in the contract. I'm not allowed to broadcast unless I'm creepy.
But I'm really excited to try to spread my conservative message to the people that maybe don't have a voice, don't have... there's so many people who are young who have the beliefs that I do, and the beliefs that a lot of people here at CPAC do, the young people that are here, but they're not willing to shout it out because they don't know how to. They don't have anybody to really lead them through it. And there aren't enough young people who are speaking out in the movement, partly because of people like C.J. Pearson and Jonathan Crone who have ruined it for young conservatives. But the problem is I think that you can't start that young. You've got to start, late high school, early college, and then you can relate to the people who are in high school and college and start to inspire them to get active, and I hopefully will be able to do that.
See, my take on it with C.J. Pearson and somebody like you, if you came out like C.J. did and he's on, with the age, if you're an adult, I mean, to my age with the young guys coming up, if they change their mind and whatever, you leave them alone and you let them grow. You don't give them vile hate on social media. But I do think that when they have things to offer, I think that you get behind it. That's just my take on it. And I think that's, the conservative movement needs a little more class and a lot less jackass, in my opinion.
I think I do agree with that to a point, but when they thrust themselves into an adult world, C.J. Pearson thrusted himself into an adult world, so he needs to be treated as such, I believe. And I was treated as such as a young kid. I didn't like it, but it got me prepared for political things to this day. And I think if people like that want to be in politics, if they want to be that young and active, they need to be held to the same standard, even though they're at a different age, as other people in the movement. And I think that some people were too hard on him, but I think that he does need to see the criticism. Otherwise, he's never going to learn from his mistakes. And so, for me, I learned from a lot of different things that I said or did that I was criticized on. And a lot of people are like, oh, don't attack this kid. And, at that point, I was like, yeah, I agree with you. Don't attack on me. But it taught me a lot. And so I think that there's something to be said there about, holding them accountable.
4 years into it, having taken a break and coming back with everything you've accomplished, having written at the Blaze, having to get back with, with Dana and those people. What do you think has been your biggest misstep and mistake in the 4 years you've been doing this?
I think it was starting so early, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Because I did start when I was 10 or 12, and I had a somewhat different belief system, and I didn't really know what I was doing. My parents were never active, so I didn't really have, somebody giving me constant guidance because my parents didn't know what to say or do about political things. They supported me 100%, but they weren't like, Benji, don't do this, don't do that. And I'm not saying you have to have somebody like that, but they had no political experience. So I think it was probably getting active so young because it's tough to stay on the same track. And, I associated with people that don't necessarily still agree with me to this day. I was speaking at Tea Party rallies. For a while, I was paid by Tea Party Patriots, Tea Party Express, and I was doing some tours with them. And, I'm not, with them anymore, and I don't necessarily agree with what they do anymore. But that's just because I was so young and I was grasping at anything that was offered to me. And I said yes to way too much, because I had no experience, and my parents had no experience with that in the past. So, somebody's like, oh, do you want to write for me? Yes. And then somebody else would say, do you want to write for me? A cooler opportunity? I'd say yes. And I was like, shoot, now I have 2 yeses, and I don't know what to do. And so I think it was just so young, you don't really know how to act. And most of all, you don't know how to say no. You don't know how to say no, and I had a problem with that.
That literally, and I mean, we've interviewed Charles C.W. Cook, Judith Miller. I mean, you run down the list. That literally was one of the most insightful answers I think that we've gotten to a question. I mean, that was a really good answer. Having that experience, can you now, you understand, you see how, as much as it is a movement, if you stay in it professionally, it also is a business.
Yes, it's definitely a business, and a lot of people make it their brand. A lot of young people make a brand out of it, or they create an organization that makes a difference. You see a lot of young conservatives creating organizations that are making a huge difference, or they start a chapter of those organizations, and it's definitely a business, and you have to grow yourself, and you have to represent yourself, because if you're going to be a voice of a movement, or if you're going to be part of the movement, you definitely have to represent yourself, and that's what business is about.
Now you have a hip hop clothing line for conservatives coming out called
BB.
No, I just Backers Bits or something like this. We want to thank you very, very much, Benji. Tell everybody right now where they can find you on that social media.
Twitter at Benji Backer, and you can find me on Facebook as well. And I appreciate the interview.
And listen, before we go, Gavin, everybody out in that audience, take your shotgun, shoot that lock off your wallet, get that credit card ready. This is not the last you're going to hear. This gentleman, he's going to have so much good product for you to buy. I guarantee it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to America Off the Rails, a Roundhouse edition right here live from CPAC 2016. We are gearing up for our next guest. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn the microphones over to Lou and Dr. Arrington. So at this point, you guys go ahead and take it away.
Hi, we have one of my favorite radio hosts here, Sam Sorbo, and she has the, I think, illustrious distinction of being the wife of Hercules. And that's your mic there. And
look,
yes, And so,
And the only one, too.
Yeah, the only wife of Hercules.
That's
so
right.
we are so glad to have you. Welcome,
Thank
Sam.
you. I got my certificate from Trump University on the way in, so I am now a graduate of Trump University.
Wonderful.
Very excited.
And it is worth about half of the paper that it's written on.
Worth the paper it's written on.
Yeah,
I need to fill in the name and I need to date it.
And
then
I
I'll be good to go.
dominated the last interview, so I'm going to let Dr. Arrington say hello to you.
You know, Dr. A needs to work on his social skills because I used to have better pickup lines for girls when I was a naval aviator. I saw her walking towards me, and I stopped her, and I said, you know, I just noticed you're a semi-attractive woman. And I held my hand out.
Like a lead balloon. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, she wasn't sure if she should shake my hand or not. But then I complimented her shoes, and she said, okay, you're okay.
Yeah, she's actually a very attractive woman. But and with a wonderful radio show.
Thank you.
I really love your radio
Thank
show.
you very much.
And I haven't
Very kind
had
of
the
you.
chance to read your book that you wrote with Kevin, but why don't you pitch that as we get started?
Which book? I didn't write a book with Kevin. He wrote a book called True Strength. I did write chapters. Actually, I wrote chapters in the book. So I suppose, you could say.
Right. Yes.
So he wrote a book called True Strength, which is details. He nearly died right before we got married. He had 3 strokes. And it took him about 3 years to recover. And then it took several years before my cajoling and my harping and my nagging got him to sit down and write the book of his recovery. So it's a book. It's a love story. My chapters, of course, are the best chapters in the book because they're about our relationship.
Of course they are.
But it's a story of overcoming incredible odds. Actually, the medical community didn't give him much hope. And so it's just a story of recovery. It's a great book for people who are in the midst of great trials or have undergone great trial and need some uplifting message to pull them through.
And that it is on my must-read list.
Oh, good.
Definitely.
Well, you'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
And there's an audiobook also. We recorded the audiobook, which I'm very proud of.
Probably more likely that I'll listen to
I've started listening to a lot of audiobooks. I enjoy it, and now that the kids are older, I find I'm driving more by myself in the car, which gives me the opportunity to do that.
Right.
And I'm a horrible multitasker. I have to be doing more than one thing. It bugs me if I'm only doing one thing.
It's a female thing. It's something women do.
Yeah. I'm having a tough time because yesterday I sat down to do my show, and somebody came by and spilled milk on my computer and fried my computer. I actually got a little tiny screwdriver today and took it apart to see if I could maybe, fix it.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah.
And that didn't work.
No.
So
for the 5 listeners that listen to Office Hours with Dr. A, I have several mantra sayings. One of them is "Let freedom ring, God help us." Now, I happen to know that Sam is a conservative woman and she's a Christian woman. And I know that those go together when you're making, political issues. What do you think about that? We need to get back to our Christian roots, or how would you comment on that?
Okay, so one of the problems that I have with Trump, and I haven't chosen a candidate, and I'm not here to bash Trump, but
oh no, we do that
he
a lot.
He comes out and he says he wants to make America great again. And he's been asked, I've seen in interviews, what is it that makes America great? And he cannot, for the life of him, express really, truly what it is that makes America great. And the thing that makes America great is our Judeo-Christian heritage, which gives us our freedom. There is not another ideology in the world that espouses freedom like the Judeo-Christian, like Judeo-Christianity, I should say. Secularism does not espouse freedom.
No.
Islam does not espouse freedom. Did you know that on Wikipedia, do you know what the third largest religion in the world is? Listed as on Wikipedia, secularism. Isn't that interesting?
No way.
It's listed as secularism, atheism, and agnosticism. But there is no tenet of that religion that espouses freedom.
And
as we know, freedom engenders capitalism. It informs everything, and that is the engine that drives America.
Absolutely. This is something that you talk about on your show a lot. Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're constantly talking about that on your show. So. And it definitely agree with that. And you've done, I have heard you do shows and talk a lot about the difference between Islam and Christianity from that perspective, and have some guests on your show as well that talk about the lack of freedom
Both did everything you earned by breaking your backs. We're gonna redistribute when we make our pay tax. Hey, sit back down.
Screw you guys. I'm getting home. Later.
Game over, man. It's game over.
The leader in talk radio on the internet, right here on K98Talk.com.
If you want to work until you keel over, have less of everything in retirement, or give back more of your hard-earned money to the stock market again, then just ignore me. But if you'd like to protect the money you save, receive a steady, predictable retirement income, and enjoy financial security for as long as you live, then listen to this. You can download a free report that reveals the wealth-building secrets Wall Street and the banks don't want you to know. You'll learn how you can get guaranteed growth, safety, and real prosperity without risking your money in the Wall Street casino, and how to get the money you need when you need it, simply by asking for it. This is the best way to have a 100% secure retirement and know your money will last as long as you do. To learn more about this method and to get your free report, go to 29security.com. That's the number 29security.com. 29security.com. Go to 29security.com.